Welcome to Cancer and Peace. My name is Sean Stewart, and I'm here with our host, Peter Scalzo, 20-year cancer journeyer, survivor, and we're going to continue. We had our 100th posted episode. Apparently, we've recorded more than that, but we recorded our 100th episode, and we talked about interruptions because you had just come off of a great big interruption in your life, and we spent some time. So we're going to get back on track today, being uninterrupted, although it feels like a long interruption. It's been like 2 weeks since we recorded, I think, anything. Mm-hmm. So welcome back, Peter.
Yeah, welcome back, Sean.
So today we talked about the stages of the cancer journey, and we're going to jump right back into that. Mm-hmm. And we had listed out, stages that we think you go through in the cancer journey. And the last one of those we had done was the warrior. We were actually in the battle, in the thick of this journey. Mm-hmm. And we talked quite a bit about what that looked like for you, what the warrior stage looked like for you. And on the back side of that, assuming you're not killed in battle, that sounds really bad, I guess, but not all warriors survive in some sense. But on the back side of the warrior stage is a stage that may surprise, and these are coming out of some of Eldridge's work, and that was the lover stage. And how does that strike you? Is there anything that makes sense out of that in your mind as you think about your journey of having gone from warrior to lover stage? Does that make sense?
I've read his work where he talks about it, but I think a definition would be helpful. In other words, what do we mean by the lover stage? Now, I know my recollection of his work is really the stages of a man's life, because he really talks a lot about men. And there was this point at which the boy who becomes a man and who's in the warrior stage realizes that there's beauty, whether it's in the form of a woman or nature or whatever, but he awakens to the aesthetic and intrinsic and extrinsic beauty that's out there. And that's where the lover in him starts to form and grow and all that. So it was interesting because we've been using these stages, as Eldridge gives them, for the stages of a man for the cancer journey.
Yes.
So I'm wondering, Mr. Host, how
you're the host.
You're the.
All I do is facilitate.
I'm wondering,
getting you to give us all your wisdom.
That's why
he called me Mr. Host.
I'm surprised there's 100 episodes then. No, but I am wondering, Mr. Facilitator, how this gets woven in the cancer space. I think it does, but tell me your thoughts.
Yeah. Well, my looking at people who have gone through a cancer journey, one of the things that people that have gone through hardship is you can't go through this without your narrative story being reshaped, and you look at life differently as you come out of a great battle of cancer, because suffering changes people in a big way. And so I think you did a good job of describing, when when a man comes through their warrior stage and they come back, they're able to see the world from a different lens. And so that's kind of where I was going to go, where I wanted to go with you from your cancer journey is, hey, what looked different to you about life? And what changed you? Mm-hmm. Like what changes, when you thought about your family as an example. My guess is that you look at them differently, the people that are closest to you, mm-hmm. and what's important to you changes. And that's why I think the lover stage it's as if your priorities have shifted. I've seen that in your life, that your priorities shifted quite a mm-hmm. bit as you, and I'll give an example. I'll be interested to hear your thoughts, but the Peter Scalzo I knew more, I guess I knew about, because we really didn't know each other, but while you were an elder in the church and a highfalutin lawyer, I get to say that, you were a highfalutin lawyer, was a man of status who lived in a big house, and you were known around town. I think you were even known for your wealth in many ways by many people in the community, and your family is well known. And You coming out of the warrior stage lived out of 7 banker boxes in a 1-bedroom apartment, and your focus had changed on the backside of the battle. And so that fascinates me to no end that, and it's not, this isn't an indictment on wealth or the, careers. Both of us have been involved in that world. And I'm not actually here to be critical towards any of that. I'm just saying, but we were pursuing something different. I think too. I think both of us were. And on the backside of the battle, here you are, 7 banker boxes, a 1-bedroom apartment. And I saw a man who was content in that for different reasons. And so maybe you have your own thoughts, but it really helps me to understand something big inside of you changes when you've gone through the battle.
Yeah, sometimes I feel like God is sitting there saying, gosh, it takes this guy a long time to learn what I want him to learn. I can give Sean a ingrown toenail, and Peter I have to bring on a 20-year cancer journey to get him to that place. But I appreciate what you're saying. And I think that, well, right now the status of my journey is that it's ongoing. I think when a cancer journey becomes metastatic, it almost reaches a new level because the prospects of survivability are in question much more. And so there's what all of a sudden it's like a whoop, death is staring you in the face. And but I think from the moment of my first surgery at Sloan Kettering in 2005, where my urinary system was just basically taken, bladder removed, prostate removed, parts of a ureter removed, with this 14-inch incision going down my abdominal area. The feeling was I've been stripped. And I remember, the gown and what it's like in a hospital when you're just trying to recover and the feeling stripped. But I did return back to normalcy. I had 12 surgeries, and not all major. There's surgical procedures in there. But that 14th surgery in 2015, when the cancer became metastatic, that was a sea change for me and a game changer. And that was the same incision, same urinary system, totally replaced with intestinal tissue, same stripping down. But now the difference was you're not going to survive this. 5% survival and all that. So that started my journey of metastatic cancer. It's almost like the river was going one way and then it diverted and went down that way. And so you're right. I'm a different person after having gone through this journey. And yes, there was that point in the journey where 2017, cancer throughout, tumors the size of a tennis ball, just go home and pass, where I made moves that, such as, I can't be a licensed lawyer anymore in the sense of practicing. So I had to leave my practice. I remember that discussion with my firm. I remember we had sold our house and my wife had moved down to North Carolina, and I had this apartment only. And because the plan was I was going to go back and forth. And then we entered into our pretty serious marriage struggles, and I stopped going down there. So I came back to live permanently in that 800 square foot apartment with the 7 banker boxes. And so it's interesting because you characterize me as a certain person, image, attorney, and I don't know about the wealth part ever, but coming from a wealthy family in the sense of real estate and being well known, all that stuff. All that stuff was stripped away from me, including health, my marriage, all that stuff was stripped away. And so the issue for me is, what perspective, how am I going to adjust to these new changes? And it was emotional, of course, physical, but also theological, which meant a lot to me.
Mm-hmm.
My relationship with the Lord was super important to me. And it's like, what does this all mean, God, between me and you? Between this relationship I have with you, what does this mean? And I think, like for me, I went through that crisis, asking those questions. And what I came down to basically, do you want me to talk about where I ended up, or
Well,
not yet?
you're the host. You can talk about whatever you want. I think, yes,
Yeah.
you're in the place of, I want to highlight a couple of things, and I want
Yeah.
you to kind of, you and I are going through this book, Sacred Romance.
Yeah.
And it really is speaking about your relationship with God. It's like, where your heart, like what is really your heart's desire, and what are you pursuing? And so you just now started talking about, your relationship with God became so much more important. And it was your love relationship. It wasn't about doing duties and being an elder, which I think, busyness can be a mistaken sign of a relationship with God, but your actual relationship with God shifted and changed in a relational sense. And I thought about, as you came out of those, as you had the metastatic cancer journey and your survival was really low, you took time. The most important things were, you took time to be relational. You recorded messages to all your kids, because it was so important for you to share your heart with them. And I think, I guess I'm focused on a bit of your relational heart.
Okay.
Is kind of what I see out of this. And so when you're talking about something that's, I think there was not just a sea change in the medical journey. I think there was a sea change in the way you viewed and approached the world.
Yeah. And I think recovery had a lot to do with setting me up for that change. And, in 2005, when I was at Memorial Sloan Kettering and I was having major surgery for the first time, and they wheeled me into the surgical room, and the techs were all there, and the two doctors. I had been quoting a verse about being crucified with Christ. It's
Right. Yeah.
Galatians 2:20. I remember I stretched out my arms, and I heard in my spirit and mind, heart, I'm going to remove the physical cancer from you, but I'm also going to remove the spiritual cancer from you. And I remember going under thinking, what does that mean? And so 10 years later, I'm sitting there with metastatic cancer at Lenox Hill Hospital in Manhattan and in ICU. And I had gone through a recovery journey where I, for the first time, became honest about myself and became aware of who I was, the false self and the real true self. I'm like, oh, this is the false self. And 21 character defects bubbled up. You're kind of grinning. And I went through that whole journey of recognizing sin and character defects, confessing it, admitting, confessing to myself, God, and others, and experiencing a deep amount of healing with that. And so I went into this 2015 surgery on the heels of that. And I remember saying to the Lord, this is, my emotions poured out, as, that's my testimony. It's in other podcast episodes about how I had a journal and I wrote down these raw emotions. And I think for me, it was, what is the deal? Was the basic gist. It's like, I'm going to contend with you, God. We're going to have a little wrestling match here because I don't understand what's going on. I mean, this journey has now taken a turn for the worse. Now we're looking at death. Before we were looking at major interruptions, but now we're looking at death. So I had to go on a journey with God. And that was super important to me, to gain an understanding into what was happening with me from God's perspective and how I felt about that. How did I feel about the fact that God had allowed something in my life which was horrible? How did I reconcile that with a good, God, all loving, all knowing, all powerful God. And I had to enter into those tensions in that place and reconcile what was happening. And so that totally deepened my relationship with God, because where I ended up in that relationship was experience his deep presence, first of all, through all of it, ICU, recovery, everything, experiencing his embrace, experiencing his love and affirmation of me, but also gaining a perspective from him on my situation of pain and suffering and where this journey was going. In other words, entering into a place, we said it before, of acceptance and purpose. And can I surrender and trust in Jesus? Can I enter back into that great romance with him? Can I trust my heart with him? And after this long journey, I got to the point where I said, yes, even though I am at death's door and I am suffering, I can trust my heart with my great love, with God. And so, yes, that was a total relational, romantic journey with him. And then I had been advised, I was sent home to call hospice in 2017 and to do an end-of-life journey. And I was advised by a pastor to write letters to my kids. And he had said to me, when you write these letters, talk from your heart. So I totally took out what characteristics they had. I put that on a shelf. And the question I asked myself was, how did I feel when each of you were born? What was going on inside of me? What emotions were I feeling? And was I feeling? And then as you were growing up, what was I feeling? And what do I appreciate on a character level, on a love level about you? And it took me a week to write each letter. I ended each with like a scripture verse. I sealed those letters. They're dated 2017. I still have them. I'm going to give them to each child at some point, and I'm not sure when. I'm going to wait on that and see when I believe God wants me to give them those letters. But laying in that hospital, I could care less about the house I lived in.
Yeah.
I could care less about the car that I drive. It didn't matter. It didn't matter that I was an attorney. It didn't matter that I was a leader in the church or wherever community. It did not matter. What mattered was, Jesus, if I'm going to spend eternity with you, I want to enjoy you right now. And then I'll slip off into your arms at some point. And Lord, what's most important to me is I want to leave a legacy for these kids that is genuine, authentic, and really, really matters. And, I kind of still live my life like that now. I mean, I live in a new house that my brother built for me, right? But I was content in my 800 square foot apartment. I lived there almost 5 years. But at that point, the story.
Yeah.
I was going to get married, and that broke off. And so we had planned on this new house. And I just went ahead and built it because I had a grandchild now, and there's more room. I mean, for holidays in my old place, kids were sleeping in the kitchen on sleeping
So
bags.
good, yeah.
They were all over. It was only one bedroom. So I'm happy to be living there. It's fine. But it's a house to live in.
Yeah.
Do I enjoy it? Yes. But
Yeah. It's what it means to you is different. And I think
Yes.
this is, I was thinking about something about the way what you were talking about kind of made me think about Keller's statement. He's like, all marriages start out transactional. And for a long time I was, I had thought about this concept. It's like, yeah, that's so true. It's like, we go into marriage and we're seeking out this great bargain. And then as you get into that, you find you're living with somebody who has character defects just like you. And some of those things turn out not to be a bargain. They're something that they're cause, the rough edges are wearing against each other. And I think what we've been talking about here in the warrior stage is the going through the wall, like the hardship of the cancer journey. You go through the wall and I think most of us in our journeys, we hit these walls and we try to approach them on the front end transactionally. And transactionally meaning that maybe we bargain with God about those things, or we approach it purely in a, what do I need to do and what do I need to get and how do I get there? And the wall is meant to transform. And so a big part of what this podcast has been about has not been so much about cancer itself. It's been about your transformation journey, what cancer did to you and what God did through that journey has changed you in a relational manner. And so I would bet today, that you are a much greater lover. And the reason why isn't because you kiss better. You and I have never kissed, and I hope we don't have to.
I don't think that's going to happen.
Yeah, that's good. But you know what I mean by that. It's not in the physicality sense. It's like the way you're approaching the world today is not transactional. It's not status. It's relationally, you've learned how to love. And it's come from going through the wall and finding out what really is important. It seems like this journey has really brought you into being a lover of people, relationships, deeply empathetic with those around you who are also on a cancer journey, who have gone through hardship, and not striving for a new house, a new car, the next level of status, the greatest shiny thing out there. These journeys of hardship do this to us, right? In some manner.
I mean, look at how I dress every week.
You're now a minimalist, yes.
I wear the same thing. In the summer, if I'm wearing this, you need to say something.
Okay, I'll wait till summer.
Yeah, I mean, so the cancer journey for me after 20 years has changed the way that I love. Yes, correct.
And you mentioned early on there, it's like you see beauty differently, and you recognize what is beauty.
Yes.
From a new lens and angle, and it's not about it being. Let me say it this way: we now, I think you and I will both agree, so you can confirm this. We see beauty in brokenness. A lot of beauty in brokenness. And that's something to be celebrated. And we now celebrate brokenness, not to stay with 21 character defects the way it's like, but it's to recognize how deeply broken we are and yet loved. Because if you can love that broken, that's a place of humility. It's very difficult to love from a place of pride.
It's funny you're talking about this. For some reason, I'm on a Billy Graham kick. I don't know if I've ever been, but...
And go back and listen to old...
well, yeah, I mean, there's a channel, but he just TikTok little video snippets of him. But he mentioned the other day, he said, the closer we get to Christ, the more we see the sinfulness and defects within us. Like that holiness and light of Christ. And I was thinking, boy, that's true. Like I've really been so reminded of my brokenness more than ever, of my sinfulness and character defects and stuff. And yet the tension is, and yet Christ still loves me, that he desires relationship. I think that's, if someone said to me, how do you know Jesus loves you? He desires relationship with me. He wants to know me intimately. And he's not this stand in the corner with his arms crossed condemning God. He's let's sit down and dine together. Let's put our arms around each other. God. And I just appreciate that brokenness, what you were saying, beautiful brokenness within the fact that I can still have relationship even though I'm broken. It's a beautiful thing, really.
If you have to get to perfection to be loved, then that's transactional, because that means you have to do these things to be able to be lovable, and as opposed to we're loved in our infirmities. And I think the cancer journey must teach something big in this. To be loved in your infirmities, I think also makes you a better lover because you love others. On the backside of your journey, I think that's part of the journey is to learn how to love others in their infirmities and in their weakness in a way.
Yeah, because like that verse that talks about what we've received, the comfort we've received, we then give to others. And that's part of the comfort that I've received is, man, Jesus puts his arm around you in all your brokenness. Can I do the same? That's why I love recovery and cancer support and those areas. People are in the very incredible brokenness that they're in, and I can put my arm around them and walk with them, kind of thing.
I want to make a point here,
Yeah.
and that is, and it's something that it just struck me as you were talking about your own journey, and there might have been some implication that like these stages are, okay, you've done the warrior stage and now cancer is behind you and now you can be a lover. And I think there's a lot of overlap here, and it's my belief that you're going to be a warrior the rest of your life. In one sense, like with a metastatic cancer journey, as you described, it's not as if this is something that you can now say, well, it's gone away. You might have clear scans and things look good for a period of time, but this is a lifelong battle you're in.
Yeah, I mean, the nature of this cancer cell, that's why Sloan and my doctor, they're so surprised that I'm still living. They call me an anomaly medically because it really is a terminal diagnosis. And yet I continue to live and move on and do that. And I will say this too, from this cancer journey, each day I have a unique perspective on that day, even if I'm not feeling well. And that perspective in the back of my mind is, I'm alive today.
Yeah.
Sometimes I'm not all that happy about it. But anyway, I'm alive today. I'm grateful.
Yeah, I think that's good.
And then, how can I enter into my own life and my relationship with Jesus, and how can I enter into the lives of others today?
I think a good way to think about these is that the previous stage brings you into the next stage, but it doesn't mean the previous stage is necessarily over. And that's something I didn't want us to think that, well, okay, I've cut off this stage and now I've started this new.
Yeah, no.
Because there's so much overlap here, and it may have sounded the way we started this episode that, we're thinking it's like, well, you complete this stage and then you get to go to the next stage. But so much of what we're talking about is, no, the stage prior will bring you into the next stage. And it may be that you're experiencing some of these stages at the exact same time for the rest of your life. And we'll explain that a little bit more even as we go to the last two stages that will come out in 2 or 3 weeks here. But I think I see that you're still at war in many ways, in a battle. And yet that battle, that warrior stage, has really drawn you into the being a better lover, somebody who's deeply relational, who sees the world with a beauty and a lens that you wouldn't have been able to see without having gone through this battle. But now your lens has permanently been reshaped. You can't go back to where you were prior. But it's a place of no longer transactional. You think of the world in a way that is deeply relational, deeply covenantal with God, and not about trying to give to get or to get the best bargain in relationships. It's somebody who is saying, no, actually, I want to give that which has been given to me in abundance. And that's why you do this podcast, is to give out of abundance of the overflow of what's been given to you in this journey.
Sounds good, Sean.
I'm speaking for you
it's
now.
Amazing. Yeah, you did a
well,
good job.
I could almost host for you while you're away, but I think I won't. Well, anything else you want to share on the lover stage before we close the podcast out today?
I like the sound of the lover stage because even within the midst of ashes, there can be beauty. And I've experienced that within the cancer journey, like deep within the bowels of a hospital, having a conversation with a medical person or something where it turns to a relational, beautiful point. So no matter where I'm at I can find beauty. There can be beauty within the ashes, and I kind of like that's. I really like that. I'm a romantic guy. There are people out there who would laugh at that, but I feel like I am a romantic guy.
Well, I'm going to leave it right there. Mr. Romance has closed the podcast out today on the lover. But thanks so much for sharing your journey of into the lover stage, out of the warrior stage, not out of, through maybe, as you've been going through it. So, because I think you're going to be a warrior here out. But thanks for sharing your story.
Thanks, Sean. Blessings.